crack on. Yeah. So.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Stewart, and with me are Tom Pickering and David McLean from the Winning Thinking team. David is a former Royal Marine, a senior psychotherapist who consults to major corporations, and is also an expert in managing fear in very adverse situations. Tom is vastly experienced as a business leader and has helped many businesses with serious challenges rapidly achieve resolution and certainty. Today, together with Tom, we look at the future of networking and business development. So Tom, I would be grateful if you could please introduce Thomas.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. Yeah, it's a privilege to introduce Thomas Power to us today. The interesting thing is that we've got two Thomases on this call. We had two Mikes last week and two Davids. We always have two Davids, so hopefully you won't get too confused. Anyway, what we've actually asked Thomas to talk about is the future of networking and business development, and also to get your view, Dave, Thomas, in terms of the new now, if that's okay. So, and what we'll do is turn it around. I'll ask a few questions, and then David, and there'll be other contributions. And the idea is to try and take as rounded a perspective of the situation we face now in the context of what we're looking to discuss, to really get some pragmatic strategies out of this that people can take away, including ourselves. So we're quite surprised actually on a week by week basis how much clarity we get from this discussion. And I'd also like to thank very much the guests, the regular guests who joined us on this call, and feel free to ask any questions. So without further ado, Thomas, over to you, sir. Do you want to put you're muted? Unmute.
Mute off.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tom. And nice to meet you, two Davids. Some of you will know, well, hopefully all of you know, Penny and I started eCademy in 1998. And that was the first social network for business. And that grew up by 2012 when we sold it to 650,000 members. And a couple of % of those subscribed. They either paid £2 a month, £10 a month, or £100 a month. And so the difference between Penny and I is she's the emotional one and I'm the numbers one. So I'm particularly fascinated by numbers and how networks work. And so the first thing I wanted to put into your minds was I've got 300,000 followers on Twitter. And they're probably 50% of the people who joined eCademy between 1998 and 2012. There were 650,000 members over that period. So about half of the people I connected with on eCademy followed me on Twitter. And each year I used to meet 1,000 people a year in eCademy. So over those 14 years, I physically met face-to-face, one-to-one, 14,000 people. And the numbers really matter to me. I'm sorry I'm a numbers guy, but the numbers really matter to me because of the 300,000 who follow me on Twitter, 32,000 follow me on LinkedIn. Okay, so you can see that's 10% of the 300,000 and it's 5% of the 650,000. But last year, Penny and I talked about coming back into the networking scene and the business development scene around business-to-business social networking. And so we launched a group on Facebook called the Penny and Thomas Club, the Penny and Thomas group, based around her second book that she published last spring called Business is Personal. And the group is called Penny Business is Personal with Penny and Thomas. And 2,800 people have joined that group since we launched that last year. So I want you to think about the fact that 300,000 at Twitter, 32,000 at LinkedIn, and 2,800 people on Facebook, that the actual engagement rate in any network is 1%. The people who are truly engaged in your content or with you in some way is 1% of the audience. So if you had 100 followers on Twitter, you would have one person who was engaged in your content. And by engaged, I mean knowing David or knowing Mike or knowing Tom. You know of one another. You respect each other's point of view, each other's content. You don't necessarily agree with the point of view or the content, but you respect the opinion of, in much the same way many people yesterday respected Dominic Cummings' presentation, but still don't like him. And some people who like him more and disrespect him less. But they're not part of his network. We're just observers seeing him on TV. When I talk about the 1%, I'm talking about the 1% who are truly part of your network. You can email them, you can phone them, you can WhatsApp them, you can tweet them, you can Facebook them, LinkedIn them, Instagram, and they will connect with you in some way. So the actual size of now, when you have there's a much lower number now that want to do business with you. And when we talk about networking and business development, people want to actually know who wants to do business with you. Now, Penny and I run groups of 12 in a mastermind where we connect small business owners to experts covering all sorts of things, from cash flow and raising capital to online marketing to mindfulness to business development. And each year we have about 400 people who apply to be one of the 12 people in a mastermind group. And we run 3 groups every 18 months. Now, membership of those groups is expensive. It's £1,000 a month and 12 people join. So if you think about over a period of a year, that's 36 people out of the 3,000 on Facebook, out of the 32,000, out of the 300,000 on Twitter. When you break it down to conversion ratios, business development and marketing, the conversion ratio is actually 1 in 10,000 from your original Twitter audience. And I want people to know these numbers because I really don't think they do know these numbers when they're networking. I don't think they know them when they're doing their online marketing. And when you do your online marketing, there's many parts to this. You have your website, you have your profiles on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You might have a Facebook page, which is like another website, and you have a group, and that group could be on LinkedIn, or it could be on Facebook, or it could be on WordPress. And the thing I want people to understand about business to business networking, I'm not talking about social networking with your family and friends. I think that's different. But if you look at the actual scale of engagement inside networks, and you look at the anthropologist Robin Dunbar from Oxford University, he talks about the fact with Dunbar's number, or Robin Dunbar's number, that each of us as primates can only manage 150 relationships in our head. And if we have it'll be my 60th next birthday, if we have a 60th birthday or a wedding, we'd typically invite, if you didn't have a phone with you or a laptop with you, you would typically write down between 100 and 150 names. If I said write out your guest list for your daughter's wedding or your son's wedding, or write out a guest list for your 60th birthday party, I'm not sure how old any of you are, but the SAS guy looks younger. You'd probably write out 100 to 150 names. So the true amount of people engaged in your life, in your business life, is between 100 and 150 people. And really, in my numbers theory, I really want people to work hard to build a support group for that 100 to 150 people. I don't mind where they build it. They can build it in a WhatsApp group. They can build it in a Facebook group, a LinkedIn group, a WordPress group, a Twitter list. There's endless numbers of ways to look after groups. But really, in your active business working life, you have between 100 and 150 who are truly engaged with you. And 10% of those want to spend physical time with you, not just coaching time over Zoom or Teams or one of these kind of platforms, but they want to spend physical time in your presence. And you need to give them that time, whether that's paid for through some kind of mentoring or coaching or non-execing on their board. And so I really want people to understand the big part of numbers and the small part of numbers. And I call this big small theory or big small strategy. And having been online now for 31 years, since CompuServe and AOL in 1989 and 1990, some of you can even remember your CompuServe numbers. I want people to understand when they're doing their online marketing and business development about the importance of the big number and the importance of the small engaged number. I don't think you can have the small engaged number without the original big number at the top. And therefore, when you're building networks, you have to have a big strategy and a small strategy, an online strategy and a face-to-face strategy. And so that's probably about 5 minutes of my blah blah to stimulate the questions.
Yeah, thanks. So, question for you, Thomas. In terms of building you talk about building numbers, creating a supportive network versus the control organizational thing as well. And there's a definite sort of paradox. I see the two things are not sort of necessarily mutually exclusive. That said, in terms of building numbers, I think one of the things I rather cynically pick up is a sort of sycophantic type approach. And I remember of trying to build an audience. And I remember a friend of mine who's actually an insolvency practitioner who's calls a brick, a bit like myself. And he said that, networking is as much about reducing the number of people in your network as it is about building numbers. And you also say that actually we're not the best judge of who should be in our network, and you don't quite know who they are, which clearly if you've got 30,000 people in your network, you don't know who they are. So how do you sort of square that circle in terms of what's the key to building a productive large group of people? Maybe to shift that 1 to 10,000, or is it always 1 to 10,000?
It's a great question, Tom, because all my theories are based on what I actually practice living. And so I'm not a scientist, I'm not a mathematician, I'm a good old-fashioned salesman selling computers for Alan Sugar. I don't have any qualifications, any degrees, any PhDs. Yeah. I'm just a 40 years on the street guy.
Yeah.
First of all, when you think about the big number, Mark Granovetter wrote a PhD in 1973. Mark's a professor of sociology at Stanford now. He wrote a PhD in 1973 called The Strength of Weak Ties. And it always fascinated me. And I read that PhD in 1999. So 26 years, 83, 90, yeah, 26 years after he wrote it. And in The Strength of Weak Ties, it says the people you know least will give you more and better information than people you know best. Now, what happens with your family and your friends and the people in your close business network is they think you know something, so they don't tell you. Now, this is really important because in business networks, you have to have new information. You have to have new insights, new connections, new ideas, new angles, new thoughts all the time to refresh your mind. And also for your mental health and your self-esteem. If your head is not constantly stimulated with new ideas and new thoughts, then you don't refresh and heal.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think if you look at the piece on Wikipedia called Interpersonal Ties, you will see that you get more new information. He calls it novel information, but you get more new information from people you know least than the ones you know best.
Yeah.
So your friend in the who calls a brick in the insolvency practice is right. You do have to make your network bigger and smaller all the time, because you want more and more and more of the 1% who are very engaged and want to be intimate with you, intimate in the business sense. And also you need the number growing at the top all the time, so you're filling the top of the barrel or the top of the funnel, as the online marketers like to call it, with new faces. But when you're filling the top, you have to know only a tiny percentage drop out at the bottom.
Yeah.
And some people want an online relationship with you. Some people want a physical one with you. Some people just want to scan your content on Twitter or LinkedIn and just get some ideas and inspiration from you. It might give you a like or a comment, but they don't want to physically engage with you and they don't want to do business with you, but they're happy to consume your content. And you have to be able to classify them all.
Mm.
And so I think the point your insolvency guy made is accurate. You have to grow the big and you have to flush out the small, because you only want the engaged. And I've been working now for 40 years, since I was 16. I started at Waitrose. And I think of the people who are actually actively in and out of my network over those 40 years. I still have people from Waitrose in my network from 1980.
Yeah.
Which seems weird, but they're still there. And then I can have people who arrive instantly today and can be gone in a month. But we have a fantastic 4 weeks. So long-term holding the 1% is very, very difficult without some kind of physical event, a coffee, a mastermind group, a meetup, a dinner. So Penny and I, up until COVID, we ran a dinner every month in London just for 12. And that just at cost, £100 at cost, in a nice posh private room restaurant. And that was always full of 12. And somebody came to that somebody came to that dinner who worked in our call center with Mike and I in 1988. And he said, I said, why have you come to this dinner? He said, well, I just wanted to catch up with you. And I said, but 1988 to 2019, a long time. So you don't know who's in your network, in that giant who's still connected, but they're not engaged. And you can be connected and not engaged. And I think one of my concerns with Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram is you're connected, but you're not engaged. And 99% is just connected. The real engaged, I think, is tiny. 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000, who are truly engaged with you.
Yeah.
And I think it's important in business to business that you do business with the people who really want to do business with you, and you want to do business with them.
Yeah. I think that one of the things I notice is, in terms of networking, you've always got to have something interesting to say, particularly with, I've built a network of pretty much everybody in terms of venture capital, and got very good, strong relationships, which having been through some difficult challenges together, you foster strong relationships. But then I think there's something what I describe as being a multiplier. So why are David, Mike and David on this call? Is because there's something about the way we work together, which actually doesn't mean 1 + 1 is 4. It's 20 or 30. Otherwise, we may as well just do our own thing. How do you sort of, and that's one thing, which is the multiplier. But the second thing is around the action. How do you get people to action, Thomas? What's the key ingredient? Because if you're not careful, lots of talking going on, but no action. And actually, I think eventually that fizzles out in terms of a useful relationship or in your network. How do you get people to action?
Okay, in answer to your first point, Tom, about the 4 of you, and I'm your guest today, it'd be interesting for you to analyze how you actually met, which network, which platform, physical introduction, email, in a pub, at a conference, online, to study the background to how the 4 of you met and how the 4 of you decided to cocktail this, whatever it is, Q&A pub thing. In terms of getting people to engage, I think it's very, very hard to get people to engage. And obviously we have this new online world of funnels that we're constantly being presented with, and online launches and product launches and so on. But I think outside of things like likes and shares and retweets and posts, I think you have to have some kind of group, some kind of physical event beyond a chat conference, which is a meetup. and it has to be a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, something. But you have to have a physical meetup to see who wants to be in your presence, because the people who want to be in your presence with a C, not a T, obviously, they think you've got some information that they don't have. You either have some information or skills or some contacts that they don't have. And people go networking for information, skills, and contacts, or they have something that you want, and that's why you're both present. But I think in this world of likes and retweets and shares and pushing information around endlessly, to me, I think 99.99% of it is utter drivel, Tom, in all honesty.
Yeah.
And I think there's far too much dependence on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And I hate to say, people say I'm a disgruntled academy owner, but I don't think LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook have delivered what people actually want, which is an engaged business network. I don't think they've delivered that. And I don't think they've delivered that now. It's very, very hard to find on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook who is truly engaged with you now, today, this month, this week. It's really hard.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to, normally I would contribute something, Thomas, but I think my only contribution to this is, and I challenge myself with this, is so what? Okay. So we take activity, we spend time on social media, we might write a report, but I think the challenge with all of this stuff is so what? And as an industrialist type guy, when you work in factories, is the rubber hitting the road in a different way as for whatever we're doing? And anyway, that's all. I think that's my passion, to get people to action and actually close that so what gap. But I think that'd be my contribution.
Yeah, well, I'm totally with you, Tom. Because I'm a business-to-business network, I'm not really a social networker. I know I'm in social networks, but people join networks for information, for contacts and deals, or skills, as we talked about earlier. I think if you're not getting information or contacts or deals out of a network, then it's not working for you.
Yeah, and that's what
I don't think you can get them without giving something to them.
Yeah.
And I really do think when I meet people in business networking, I ask people, what is their expertise in one word? Very hard for people to answer. I ask people, what's the biggest project they're working on right now, to see if it verifies question one and it matches, because often it doesn't match, and they give you their expertise and the project doesn't match their expertise. You think, so they don't know their expertise.
Yeah.
And the third question I ask them is, who can I put you in touch with who can help you with that project?
Yeah.
So I give a connection around the projects and the expertise, and that's my give to the network.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased you didn't ask me that question anyway, Thomas. That's good. Anyway, over to you, David Allen, for your contribution. What are your thoughts?
Well, first, Thomas, thank you for being here. It's good to see you again. Good to see everyone. And great thoughts. I think one thing we'd be slightly more interested in is how has this new normal affected it? Because you haven't said anything about, is this affecting it at all?
Do you mean the new normal in terms of COVID and lockdown, David?
Yeah, exactly.
Interestingly enough, in a weird kind of way, I think it's actually improved the situation because there's an acceptance now that home working is acceptable. Talking on Microsoft Teams or Zoom or one of these kind of platforms, Hangouts or Google Meet, is acceptable, whereas I think it was previously a bit niche or a bit weird. I think a lot of business executives have realised, oh crikey, I can save all this money on the rent and the office, and we don't need to sit on these jets endlessly. And we all know sitting on jets, while it might be great fun travelling the world, it's very tiring. Penny and I probably have 3 or 4 Zoom calls every day. I'm very fascinated that Zoom have won the conferencing race. I think Facebook have launched Facebook Rooms to try and create Zoom inside groups. So I think that's an improvement. I don't think Rooms would have come without Zoom and lockdown. So I'm quite encouraged that this environment will improve the demand for business-to-business networking. It will definitely improve the demand for physical face-to-face meetups, be that mastermind groups of 12, or breakfast, lunch, dinner, which I'm happy about because I much prefer physical. But I think what this period has done, apart from people wanting to grow food in their garden, their radishes and their beetroots and their carrots, which seems to be everything I watch on television is about grow your own food in the garden. So I see that as quite a positive thing. I think generally there's a positive shift towards more business-to-business online networking and conversation groups like this. So whilst I think COVID has been a shock to the world, I think it's been a positive shock, not disguising the 350,000 deaths. I'm not running from that issue, but I do think the world will be better off from a communications point of view and a business development point of view and online networking in this environment. And I think when I see the new event conferencing platforms like Hopin.to and Run the World Today, I think it's good to see that we're now looking at doing business networking or social business networking in a form like this, and I see that as positive. But I still think the failure of LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter to engage with business networking conferencing platforms is something that needs to be addressed, because I want to be able to click a button and bring in my engaged network like that. And I can't.
Well, its failure doesn't really have anything to do with the medium. Its failure is because it's failure.
But it's failure because the executives on the board don't realise the need that we have as entrepreneurs and small business owners to satisfy our need for an engaged audience. And when you write to me out of the blue, Tom, and say, come and join the pub and have a chat, I think, well, great, here's a new network that's coming towards me for whatever reason. Any network that comes towards me thinks I have some value or information or content to contribute, so it makes sense to engage with. I don't think the people who run Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter think about the network from the user point of view. They're much more focused on their shareholders than they are their users, and I understand that as a director of a PLC, it is about the shareholders. But I think the user experience for business-to-business networking inside conferencing platforms with social networks hasn't even begun yet. It really hasn't.
No, just one question for you, Thomas. I think it's important that we do challenge ourselves. So I'd like to challenge you. One of the themes that's come out of this is localization. In other words, local relationships. You walk out the door and you're speaking to people you haven't spoken to before. And this has been a consistent theme all the way throughout all the pub sessions, retail, Lord Morris Glassman, everybody talked about localization. And what you're talking about to a degree is the antithesis of that. How do you see localization in 10 seconds fitting into that, please? And
in 10 seconds. Well, yeah. Penny has this idea of the business cafe, which is effectively Academy on the High Street. And we would like to see business networking on the High Street in a Starbucks style coffee environment, but you become a paid member and you subscribe to that coffee shop locally. For us, it would be Farnham, and it probably has 1,000 members in a local town.
We would like that's been a consequence of the new now. Is that something new that's occurred to you?
Well, we've had that idea since 2013, but I think there's a demand for much more local business networking at town level, and there's 1,000 towns in the UK, and coffee shops are mainly babies and mums and cakes.
Yeah.
And good as they are, that's not business networking, and I do think there's an opportunity for it, increased by COVID.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks, Thomas. That's great. So, David Allen, is there anything else you'd like to add to what we've been talking about in terms of your
No, because we're short on time, there's several questions. Maybe David McLean could dive in here with some of the questions.
Yeah. David, over to you.
Hi, how are you? Thank you, Thomas. Really appreciate that. I think it's a good one, just to, what you've been saying, really, really important. And what I'd like to say to the attendees as well is, what about the kind of the human factor here? What you've gave us some really good ideas, some really good knowledge that works, obviously, because you've proven it. And what I often think is sometimes what attendees or panelists are sitting thinking, well, how do I create this? What do I do? And you've given the technical skills, of course, on what exactly to do, but what are we doing from a human perspective? And it actually goes off one of the lectures that I was delivering recently in terms of how is COVID affecting you? How is the stress levels talk about the metaphorical stress bucket. Is it too full? Are you making the decisions that you should be making, or are you struggling in any way? Or is this fear, this unknown, the fear of the unknown, the fear of the uncertainty, is it stopping you being motivated? Because of course what's happening in the body is that we're not creating the chemicals that we should be, so we're not as motivated and get as much momentum as we should have. So it's similar to you in terms of the processes. It's very, very basic, and something I want to give the attendees is just that recognising that the physical exercise, positive thinking, positive interaction when we can, all this type of stuff is tremendously important, and often gets brushed under the carpet in terms of creating the motivation to get us up to those 300,000 followers on Twitter in the first place. And marginal gains, small changes, again, these are really, really important aspects to see to gather momentum, because we often think, what's the point in having that one meeting? What's the point in getting 12 people in? Is it ever going to go anywhere? But of course, we know that it builds and builds and makes a big, big difference. And one of the massive key points that I always talk about in terms of change is repetition. Keep at it and keep doing it, and believe in yourself. So I just wanted to add those points there. So is
there a question you want to ask me there, David?
There's a few questions. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. So I have a few points from Rob, so thank you very much. General kind of points that he's been making. And the first question comes from Richard Blakesley, and it is it oversimplistic to say the big number is marketing and the small number is sales? In my experience, far too many people fail to distinguish between marketing and sales, and hence to prioritise which numbers to focus on more.
I don't think it's an oversimplification. I think it's quite useful, but my but is that there's a lot of people who are engaged in distributing you and your content, but don't necessarily want to do business with you. So they're repurposing your content to share it, but they don't want to be a customer, a client, a supplier, an investor in your idea. And so I guess I am saying it is an oversimplification, but I think the hardest thing is when you talk about when I talk about the engaged 1%, as it were. The engaged 1% doesn't mean that they are a customer or a supplier or an investor, but they're truly engaged with you and your ideas. They want to be in your presence. So I guess I am saying it is an oversimplification, but I don't mind it. Did you say Richard or Rob asked that question?
Richard.
This one was Richard, yeah.
I don't dislike it, so I don't want to throw it out as an idea, but because it fits with big and small, and I am a believer in big, small as a strategy, as a technique, as a method, and I would like it to be taught in university, as I would like balance sheets to be taught in university, because no one can read a balance sheet, so I would like that also.
Balance sheets are a bit weird. It take a bit of time to get head around it.
They do, Tom. They do. I wish somebody would teach.
But the thing that got my head around balance sheets, like I take a photograph of the cash position of a business. But anyway, that's by the by. David, in terms of other questions, how we get on?
Yes, we've got another question from Steve Wynn to Thomas. Do you think V/C is a workable solution to replace face-to-face or not really?
What does B/C mean?
I guess it's video conferencing, is it? Do you think video conferencing is a workable solution to replace face-to-face or not really?
Well, picking up on what you said earlier, David, about the emotional, intimate, physical side of the sort of depressive sides of the chemical side of COVID, I would be very sad to not physically meet people again. If the virus was that bad, I would truly, I love this experience with you guys. I'd much rather be in a room with you, talking this through with a whiteboard, listening to your ideas.
Yeah.
And because you get so much more in the physical. I think the thing that you get I think video conferencing is good enough, but I don't think it compares to the physical presence of having a dozen or half a dozen people in a room sharing ideas, because you don't just get their ideas when you're physically present. You get the chemical release sort of makes you feel better. It gives you some kind of intimacy, some kind of release, some kind of serotonin, some kind of dopamine when you think, oh, David, that's a good idea. Tom, that's a good idea. Mike, let's discuss that idea. That's an interesting idea. Can we go more deeper into that idea? And it's hard to do that on a video conference, I think. I mean, I sit on video conferences every day. I wouldn't say they're bad, but I don't like the idea of video conferencing replacing physical business networking. And I don't want to not sit on a jet to New Zealand or Australia or America anymore. I just will do it less. If they're still there, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's good, David. Thank you.
And we have another question from Les Yuen. Given the huge numbers of followers required to distill a small number of engaged contents and the huge investment of time and effort to gather, say, 300,000 followers, do those returns justify that, or are there potentially alternative ways to increase network?
Well, that's a brilliant question. If there was an alternative way, I would like them to teach me what it was. Because I don't know it, if it does exist. It has taken me 13 years on Twitter to build that following. So yeah, it's very, very hard to build audiences. Is there an alternative way? Well, perhaps there is an alternative way. I've tried all of these different systems over the last 20 years. I don't think any one of them is perfect, but I'm very happy to consider another approach. I know people have been very effective posting a lot of video on these platforms, which I've also done, but I haven't found a way to become one of these multi-million Instagram 10 million followers type people, because I don't think I'm opinionated and controversial enough or sexy enough. You know, I'm 56 now. The sun, I've had my day in the sun, as my father used to say.
Perfect. That's the last question. Just a point that Rob Horton would like to follow up. He's going to follow up with you later.
Oh,
on.
Rob, do come and join us in the Penny and Thomas group on Facebook, because I'd love to get the members' thoughts on your questions, because I don't know the answers to all of your questions, and other people in the group may, because they may have a different approach.
Yeah. I think Rob was actually the guy I was referring to earlier when I was talking about reducing the size of your network. I think the other point that Rob made was also around capability in terms of that multiplier, you know, in terms of learning and development, as opposed to it just being a transactional event. But yeah, thank you very much, Thomas, for your contribution. That's bang on the money.
Yeah, if you take the future, can I say something else, Tom, or are we done?
No, sure. Just, yeah, you've got 10 seconds, Thomas. Yeah.
If you think everyone who's spoken on this call here have used lots of keywords, and whilst I see there's 22 participants and 16 chat questions, we're not able to take these words in this call that we've all shared and connect those words into LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube and find people who use similar words. And one of the things I found with business networks is people use about 50 keywords every hour when they're talking. And I've always done matchmaking based on keyword matching. I've got a sort of an autism lookup table keyword matcher in my head that drives my kids mad when they say a word and I refer to a word 20 years ago that they used, but it's one of those disabilities, abilities things.
Yeah, fantastic. It's really interesting, Thomas. Yeah.
But the fastest way to connect people together is when they use the same words. And currently we don't do keyword matching in conferencing linked to social media or email or SMS or WhatsApp. And if we did, we'd be able to create business networks much faster. And perhaps that's what AI will give us, I don't know. But we can't do it yet. And it's a pain having these calls written up at rev.com and then trying to get that content into a network to then match up with people. It's just not efficient yet. But I think just based on these keywords, networks within the next few years will be able to say, David, let me connect you with Bill, Susan, and Sarah. Tom, let me put you in touch with Jason, and Mike, let me put you in touch with Miles, David. And I think the network should be operating at that speed at Connect Engagement. And that tends to happen with keyword matching, because humans do keyword matching in their heads. Same football team, same handbag, same car, same holiday, same job, same company. And we match and connect. And humans don't yet support us on that. Perhaps that's what Elon Musk's Neuralink will give us when we all get plugged into Elon Musk's AI in the next few years with Neuralink, if we're brave enough to have our head drilled and stuck on the internet.
Yeah, well, I'll let you be the guinea pig for that one, Thomas. Anyway, so yeah, thank you very much for your contribution and your pragmatic perspective. I think it's been very helpful to challenge people's thoughts on this. So thank you for that. So Mike, over to you to have the unenviable task to try and summarise this eclectic discussion.
Thomas, thank you very much indeed. It's interesting, a number of speakers at the pub have spoken about the changes we're going through, and that COVID-19 is like a catalyst to new things. We're not exactly sure where the destination is, but there's change in society and business. Very interesting that one of your earliest comments were that business is personal. It will remain that way, I believe, certainly, and I think the other guys at the pub do as well. But there's these very powerful tools in Twitter and LinkedIn and so on, and how do we use those to better facilitate the personal aspect of business? So Thomas, thank you very much. I found your comments extremely interesting and thought-provoking, and I think everybody else did as well. Thank you so much, Thomas. Cheers.
Thank you for inviting me in, gentlemen. It was very kind of you to consider me.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Thomas. No doubt we'll be in doubt. We'll be networking with you.
I hope so. I do hope so.
Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you for inviting me.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.